Hi Nick, welcome on my channel.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate you having me, brother. I really like your channel. It's always got a lot of useful information, and I've been finding some quite funny clips lately, and so I like that. I always like the humor side of things, even when it is going up in flames, you know?
Yeah. Well, you get your own podcast too on Spotify, right?
Yeah, I got a small following. I'm slowly starting to grow. It's called Running Out of Patience with Nick Palmer. I thought it was the perfect name. You know, I'm running out of patience with the way the world's going, and a lot of people are running out of patience with me and the way I have to. I feel like the way I deliver my message sometimes, and it's not even my message, right? The way I deliver the message is, I guess it comes across a little bit. Rude.
Well, I've listened to your videos and I really love them, and I like no nonsense, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So I know a lot of people who are watching my channel would love your podcast too, right? So
Yeah.
check it out. Check his podcast out. You do it
Yeah.
on a regular basis, right? Making new podcasts.
Yeah. I try to do it at least every other day or so, or every few days to try to get up with it. If I try to force a message out, it just doesn't flow right. So I try to lean more heavily on what I feel God wants me to say. So, um, I guess when it's on his timing, I try to commit to a daily thing, but the time isn't always there. And, you're not going to have a good product if you're just forcing something out, every day.
Yeah.
So I try to keep it current enough though, where especially the beginning stages, right? I'm trying to build a following. I can't just put out a couple of things and then disappear. As much as some people kind of want me to, I'm not going to go away that easily.
Yeah, good. Yeah. And I think there are already too many mainstream Christian channels on YouTube. It's totally overflooded. And sometimes I wonder, why do people think we need another channel with all these old stuff, all these mainstream stuff? Isn't there already enough of it, right?
Right.
And so we try to preach truth, even though YouTube doesn't allow certain things to be discussed. And for example, there is a thing called Marxism. That means the hatred for white men, basically.
Mhm.
And it's very hard to find anything about it. Also, race debate, just an honest historical and anthropological, what's the word? Anthropology, right? Uh,
Yeah.
if you just want an honest debate about it, there's almost nothing to be found on YouTube, right?
Right.
It's like you cannot discuss it, right? You have to believe the mainstream narrative. And
Yeah.
but fortunately, we still can discuss Bible, and that's what we like to do. We like to put everything in a biblical and historical context, and then you see the lies within Christianity too, right? Do you agree?
Right. Oh yeah, 100%. It's filled with lies. They're everywhere, and the more the truth is unveiled, it's easier to see those lies.
Yeah,
It might not be as that easy to always accept, what we've known to be truth is now a lie. But the process is, like anything else. There's this quote from a movie I love. In order for a flower or a seed to become a flower, you have to completely destroy yourself first. And it's a beautiful process.
yeah,
And we have to do the same thing within ourselves. Sometimes our ideas get completely destroyed and when the truth is revealed to us.
yeah. When you were in competition in MMA, so you're a physical fighter, right?
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah. I've been fighting now since I think 2010. I started competing, and then I've got a boxing belt coming up here the beginning of October. That would be only my second boxing bout, but my 18th time stepping in a ring or a cage for competition. And I feel like it's the purest form of competition that there is. You know, it's you versus one other person, you know, fighting hand-to-hand combat. And it's a it's a beautiful art, you know, in itself. You know, I never looked at myself as much of an artist until I started fighting. And you know, it's kind of like you're in there dancing, you know, while trying to kick and punch the other guy in the face. So it's guys like me and you know, we get it. I think you have a little bit of background in martial arts too, you know, and you know, being of Jacob, you know, we're just naturally born with that fighter spirit in us, you know, and you know, like Jacob was a born wrestler before he was even born. There, he's fighting with Esau in the womb, you know, and it's just that it's in us. That spirit's in us, and it's not something that you can just kill. Even though today's society, it looks like most men really don't have it. You know, most children of God, it seems like they've been, I guess, poisoned with the water, the food, and everything like that, right? But it's
Yep.
changing the way men are these days. You know, they think they're women. You know, and you see where that leads us. It's not going to be good.
A lot of feminine men,
Yeah,
no more control over their emotions, and are easily offended by everything. And
yeah,
so what I see a lot is that Christians have experienced the love of the Father, so they clean up their act, right?
hmm
They develop a personal prayer life with God, but then they think that's all there is to it, to Christianity. It's just an individual thing, totally ignoring all the parts in the Bible that talks about us as a nation, right?
right,
So they get stuck in this personal relationship with God thing, but there is no fight in them for the kingdom, for God's people, for our brothers,
hmm
even not even loving our brothers no more, right?
right,
It's all about we are forced to love others, even with other gods, even before our own people. And
yeah,
it's all due to these false translations and false teachings, right? Like you said in one of your podcasts, these churches don't care about the truth. They just want to, doesn't matter who you are, what race you are, you just come in, you pay your money, right?
yeah. That's all it is. I mean, you can see that's what it is, especially when you get to the inner cities and you see the very distinct flags that they like to fly outside, you know, and without even saying, because I don't want to get us reported, but we know what flags are flying out some of these inner cities, and it's going totally against God. But why are they doing that? Well, that's the culture of that area, right? So how are they going to get people into their church if they're preaching against that? They're not going to get those people, and then so their church won't be there anymore. And so they only want to keep the doors open for the purpose of the money that it's generating, right? Because they have no real care about the truth. Because if they did, they would tell these folks that, hey, you can't live like that. You know, you cannot expect to live like that and think that you're even going to be somewhat even. You know, Jesus said, will not know you. You know, he does not know these, you know, workers of iniquity either. You know, it's just
Yeah. Yeah.
they're lost. You know, they're being led by the blind. You know, I like the way Christopher Sparks always leads me to these scriptures. You know, and that's why it's good that we have these relationships with our fellow, you know, brothers. You know, because we help learn from each other. You know, and you know, as much as we can read and reread the Bible, you know, sometimes some things you can pass over it. You know, and he brought it to my attention how these folks are just being led. You know, the blind are leading the blind, you
Yeah.
know, and you're being led. And where are they being led to? Well, the road of destruction, you know, that's the road of many, you know.
Isaiah
So
said,
anytime you see the masses going one direction, you better turn and maybe go the other direction because, you know, their chances are they're walking right off of a cliff, you know.
Isaiah said the dumb dogs unable to bark, right?
Mm-hmm.
For their own gain, right?
Yeah.
And that's exactly where we are right now again,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, but now that you when you came to the understanding of who the true Israel is, right? Now you feel you have a real cause, right, to be a
Right.
Christian and to fight something, right?
Yeah.
Because what are mainstream Christians even fighting for? Bring everyone to believe in Jesus. So,
Yeah.
what are they
Yeah.
really fighting for? Because this whole
They,
universal
yeah.
gospel has only caused that London is now 50% Islamic, right? Because
Yeah.
Jesus loves everybody, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, they're fighting for all the wrong people. They're fighting for everybody but themselves. You know, they're just giving their inheritance away, saying, "Here, you come have this because um, I feel bad that I'm white.
Yeah.
So come on in." And then when they're saying, "Oh, okay, we'll come in and we'll take it," and then they're getting kicked in the face, and their women are being raped, and it's not ending well for these folks, you know, because they've been led to believe that, hey, we have to love everybody. And, you know, that where does that lead you? Well, it leads you into a place where you're you're captive now, right? Because now when these migrants come in and they start to take over, now we become enslaved, right? We could become enslaved in our own homes. And soon, when did they start coming in our homes? It's just a matter of days then when they're knocking on their doors.
Well, it's just a matter of pure logic
Yeah.
that a natural phenomenon that every race and culture prefers their own race and culture.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
only natural when you have a critical mass that they would prefer, even if they're in a white nation, they would prefer
Hmm.
their own culture and gods and race. That's only
Yeah.
natural, right?
Yeah.
And me growing up in Europe, in the Netherlands, I was already used to immigrants because Holland had a few colonies of themselves. So these colonies are Dutch, so they can freely come in, right? And it was never a problem,
Yeah.
really. We're small, relatively small groups. But now, when the groups come to this critical mass, and you see that they try to start to take over, we have now in Europe Muslims in the parliament, even in government, being mayors, being ministers,
Yeah.
right? But, and God commanded us not to set any foreigner over us because
Hmm.
it will go wrong. He warned us, he instructed us.
Yeah.
But because of this humanism and human rights thing and equality and love everybody, now we are being ruled by different gods and different peoples and different ideologies.
Yeah. You even see Israelite brothers, right, being converted over to Islam now, you know, and I see people on Twitter, they're like, well, their excuse is, well, they don't stand for pornography and they, you know, and they draw a line and, but it's all by deception. I don't stand for pornography either. Any real Christian don't either, you know, we know where that comes from, you know, but they've been led to believe that these Christians are these all loving, all accepting, all inclusive, you know, all the time.
Yeah,
It's only leading people to a slaughterhouse, you know, and we can see that right now,
yeah.
you know, and
Well, I
it,
think the problem is that Christians don't really seek the truth, right? Because you should have
yeah,
love for the truth. And they read certain verses to their to the world as it is now, right? So whenever it says, "Whosoever believeth," right, he shall be right saved, or whoso. But who is these talking to? Who
mm-hmm.
are the apostles talking to? They didn't go into sub-Saharan Africa as whoever
Right,
you is, right? And Christianity basically calls Jesus a failure because the Bible speaks about how the tribes were taken away from the northern kingdom,
right,
right? But they would be reconciled. This is what Jesus did. He reconciled them. It happened 2,000 years ago, right? And it brought them into the new covenant. So why are these pastors teaching us that Jesus couldn't find them? That this disappeared in history So God had no choice but to bring the gospel to Gentiles, as in non-Israelites.
Right.
And it has made all races equal to the called sons of God. People called
Mhm.
by his name, right? So, yeah. And these verses we talk about, there's now no difference between male and female, slave and free. It doesn't even
Right.
speak about racist in that verse, even though they always use that, right?
Right.
So, and it is nothing against other races, right? I,
Mhm.
I think it would be a good thing to just let every race flourish in their own nations and fulfill their own destiny, right?
Right.
What we see now in the West, that this multicultural, multi-ethnic thing is pushed upon us, forced upon us, and if you reject it, then you're they call you all kinds of names, right? But ironically, I was in downtown Houston, and there is this church, and they have this emblem with a triangle, and they explain it. Well, there is an all-seeing eye that is the eye of God, and that God loves all people. But when you look at the actual church, it's 100% black. Well, maybe you have one or two whites walking around. So the interesting thing is when people, because the church is open to everyone. So when people actually have a choice, they still choose to be among their own people,
Mhm.
right? And that's you see in churches. There are all
Right.
white churches, all black churches, and no one forces them to do that.
Yeah.
So why are they pushing this on us that we have to do it, right?
Well, because the people in place, right? The leaders in place, this is the same plan that's been going on forever. They believe that they are this chosen people, and they know that if the certain groups of people all become mixed, right, then they lose their identity, right? And so that's the goal, is to make us lose our identity and get rid of us in the process. It's been a plan since the beginning of time to get rid of God's children.
Yeah. Well, I believe most Christians, not unbelievers, but Christians are under a strong illusion. And by Christians, I mean people are called by God. They
Mhm.
when they listen to God, so God sends a strong delusion, right? That's not a delusion to people from the Philippines or South Korea. It's about for his own people, right?
Mhm.
And that's why so many Christians, no matter how much you break it down and show evidence that these people in the Middle East are not the Israelites, you can even show them proof from these people's own books, like the Jewish Encyclopedia.
Mhm.
It says there, black on white, that these people only started to identify as Israelites in 1860.
Mhm.
Right? It's in their own books. So you show them this evidence and they totally reject it,
Yeah.
right? That's how strong his delusion is, right? So I think what we're doing is very important it's not about hating anyone. It's about the love for the brethren, right?
Right.
Our history, our culture. And so how do you feel about, and I'm sure you have the same thing on social media like Facebook, all day long, this Afrocentrism. All the
Yeah, I
Afro,
know. Every other post, it seems like, this Afrocentric, we were kings, we were Egyptians, we were Mexicans, I saw the other day. And I don't know. I just, it's laughable at this point, but at first it's kind of like a slap in the face, like they're just trying to not only steal our people and steal our identity, but then get rid of us of ever existing in the process, and how disrespectful is that to our ancestors, and the people and everything that they fought for before us.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Well, we see, for example, that slavery was for thousands of years everywhere. Oh, I think I lost you there for a moment. Did you click on something, brother?
Sorry about that. Not sure what happened.
Okay, lost you for a moment. It's still recording though, so
Okay.
we're good. I thought your
Nice.
battery died then.
Yeah.
But we see all through history, for thousands of years, there was slavery. And every people, also white people, have been enslaved at one point in time, right?
Yeah.
And it was the white man who abolished slavery, right?
Mhm.
Where even hundreds of thousands of white people who died for that cause, right? So we abolished slavery, right? Then in the South, we ended this thing, the Jim Crow thing, but it was also being taken away, right? So we give them more and more freedom, more and more equality.
Yeah.
But now it is beyond proof that these people don't really seek equality as a whole, right? We
Right.
see that they want it all, right? The Canaanite woman was happy with the crumbs, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But they don't want the crumbs no more, and they want the whole bread.
Yeah.
You with the
It,
crumbs.
they want it all. They want the land, everything that we've built, and then they want to claim that they built it. You
Yeah.
know, so it's
So
absolutely disgraceful.
why do you think it's they have such a zeal to steal everything away, right? What do you think that is?
Well, for one, they're trying to confuse God's real chosen people, right? And make us believe that we are not who we are, because if we know who we are, then we're capable of much more. You know, if you have this slave mentality and you feel like you're a people that came out of a cave and you didn't even know how to bathe your own self, if you start to believe these things, I mean, that's what you're going to become. You're going to become that kind of people. But if you know that you come from kings and you come from a God that set you apart specifically, I mean, what kind of mentality you think that's going to erupt amongst the people? A warrior mentality, you know, and they don't want that warrior mentality because, you know, they want a weakened people. They don't want a people that's going to fight back. They just want to be able to mull you over, you know. And the only way to do that is through deception and lies and telling you that you're somebody you're not,
Yeah,
you know. And at the same time, you're trying to want to empower another people and believe it, making them believe that they're somebody they're not. And you know, it's all a game. You know, I like the phrase or the analogy, right, where you take red ants and black ants and you put them in a jar and they're fine. You know, but then if you start to shake it up, then they're fighting and trying to kill each other. And that's the same thing we got going on here. You know, you mix us all in one pot and then you shake it up and expect you to there not to be some kind of chaos.
yeah.
It's, you know.
I saw people use that analogy to blame white people for the unrest there is in the nation, but the racial tension, because they see it the analogy in such a way that you can put black ants or red ants in a jar, and there will be fine, there will be peace. It's just the white man who stirs the pot, so it's the, you
Yeah.
know. But the whole point is that you can put red ants and black ants in one jar, but
Mm,
with the slightest movement, there will be unrest and they will attack
yeah.
each other. So
No,
you
for
should
sure.
do it in the first place,
Yeah.
right?
Right. Well, that's why they have red ants and black ants. You know, if not, they would just be, you know, what would it be? Red and black. You know,
Yeah,
you just have this mixed ant then walking around, but that's not what we have. We have separate people and separate things for reason, you know? We all have certain specific roles to play. And I think some of us forget who we are, and some of us don't know who we are. And then some of us just kind of believe that um, we were, you know, these cave people that were capable of nothing.
yeah. We have to learn how to bathe ourselves and
Yeah.
running water and build brick houses, right?
Yeah, but somehow we've become a people that, you know, were Vikings and conquered everything, you know, in great warriors and conquered every nation, you know, and not only doing that, but then built these nations up to what they are now, you know. and now they're slowly being destroyed. They're not quite what they are, what they once were, but you know, it was just sad in itself. You know, American cities being destroyed. You know, and back in the day, they had, you know, I think Chicago was referred to as the white city at one point.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think there's anything white about that city anymore, and you
Was
can
it
see what's
because
happened to it.
there's a lot of snow there, just like the
Yeah,
Canada Great White North.
yeah, that's what they'll claim. You know, it's just because of the snow. That's why. But you know,
But I agree.
Mm.
All the major cities are just not American cities anymore, and people don't understand that a real deep sense of belonging and peace inside is to be among the people who share the same history, the same ancestry, right? But they try to create a human being that gets used to this unrest and then just learns on the outside a thin veneer to just coexist. But it's just a thin veneer, right?
right,
And I notice this in everyday life that you meet all kinds of different peoples. And sure, in the stores and at work or on the outside, yeah, you can be polite to each other, right? But it's a very thin layer, right?
right,
So, and how can you ever truly live in this sense of if you have that constant tension? They say, oh, it's because of us, we are racists, but everyone feels this, right?
right.
So
Huh.
I become very aware of this feeling, right? That just you don't have this no more, right?
Mm.
It's a constant. Yeah, you can see it in the eyes of people, right? It's
Right.
just there. You cannot deny it, right? And now there are a large group of professors and left Marxist professors and teachers who say that there is not even a race. There is zero difference between
Yes.
races. Uh, the difference in races is a social construct. That's all it is, right?
Yeah.
And but Marxism goes all the way back to Marx, and Marx came from a long line of rabbis who carried Babylonian ideas, right?
Hmm.
As long as the European people start to realize who they are, they were reconciled, brought into the new covenant. They believed in Christ, and
Yeah.
through the Spirit of Christ, they created these nations, right? And there was
Yeah.
another group of people who were excluded from that, and they hated it. So what are you going to do if you want it all too? If you want all these blessings, you're going to try to convince the sons of God they're all equal, right?
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened, right? And then
Yeah.
some people say, yeah, but that's not fair because someone from China or Rwanda didn't choose to be chosen as that race. But is that the definition of birthright? Let's say
Hmm.
my father was a millionaire, right? So automatically, my birthright is going to inherit all that money. Now, other people can say that's not fair. I want part of that money, but that's not how it works,
Right.
right? Yeah, but I'm poor and I never had anything. No one gave me anything, and you get all these millions. You need to know. I'm not going to share it with you. But if I want to, I can give you something, but you cannot force me to give you things because it's my
Uh-huh.
inheritance. That's the way it is, unfortunately.
But they want their reparations. You
Yeah.
know.
For what? For
Yeah.
what? I never owned slaves. They were never working in the cotton fields, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I believe that um, the African people who are still here, who now call themselves African American, or even they don't want that anymore. They just want to be called Americans, right? I think they are
Yeah.
much better off than the people still left in countries like Liberia, where there's constantly war and
Yeah.
right. So
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
why can't they just
Anybody that, yeah. No, go ahead. Sorry, I cut you off there.
why can't they just realize, wow, okay, my ancestors went through a rough time, but because of that, I'm now here. I'm blessed. I live in this beautiful white nation, right? And with this narrative, they're also oppressed. When I drive here on the highway, on the Katy Highway here in Houston, I
Mhm.
see black women driving around in big Mercedes and BMWs, right? They have a bigger car than I have. So what's the problem, right? When is it enough? You even have black overpaid sports people who make billions, right? They live in $100 million house, and still they promote this oppression of their people. What a strong delusion is that, right?
Mhm.
We even had a black president. So how can you say that America is racist, right? It's just that white people who become conscious of this is our inheritance, our forefathers gave this, because this is what a father does. He tries to
Yeah.
make life better for his offspring, right?
Yeah.
In Europe, you had all these different tribes, the Celts, the Gauls, the Saxons, the Anglos, the Germans, the Frisians, right? The Scythians, all these different tribes. But they all became one in Christ, right? Yeah. And we had
Yeah.
some rough times, right? According to Revelation, there would be beast systems installed, right? But
Mhm.
still, when you look at the development of the Europe, right? Everyone wanted to make it better. And the same spirit was in the European settlers who came to America, right?
Mhm.
The East Coast had already big cities, but then they moved west. There was literally nothing. Can you imagine our forefathers coming into Texas with 100 degrees, with no AC, with nothing?
Mhm.
But they made it work. They made it better for the next generations, and better, and better, and better. Now that this seemed a bad thing somehow. We even brought this civilization to other parts of the world where they were still hunter-gatherers, right?
Mhm.
And that was God's plan. But it is now being seen as colonialism and evil, right? I can only imagine that liberal Democrats would tell Joshua, "Now you're such a bigot. God, God telling you go
Yeah.
into Canaanite and take the place over. You're such
Yeah.
a bigot, right?"
Yeah. Just completely wipe them from the earth.
Yep. Can you imagine? I can imagine these people standing there with banners. Stop the racism.
Yeah.
But yeah, at some point we have to come to terms that God is not going to be played around with. His will be done, right?
Yeah.
Uh, the Bible speaks about there is a way that seemeth good to man, but the end thereof is death, destruction, right? This is
Yeah.
what we see now in our people. We think we know much better than God, and yeah, I don't know, but to me it's pretty obvious that our nations are being destroyed now.
Yeah. They are
Yep.
completely destroyed, and they are not what they once were at all. The nations. I mean, you can just start with America alone. Look at the big cities. St. Louis, Detroit. Milwaukee, Minneapolis. Dallas, Houston. These cities are just. You drive through them. You're better off just to keep on driving in any direction.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, Houston is only 20% or 22% left white,
Yeah.
right? So we are a minority. Does
Yeah.
that mean that all these other people are evil? No, I know a lot of
Mhm.
hardworking Mexicans, right?
Yeah.
And they're nice people, good people, but it is only natural that now like 50 or 60% is Latino in Houston, and large areas look like Mexico, right?
Yeah.
And you can say, well, what's wrong with that? Well, what's wrong with it? What about our culture? and the way our streets used to look like. What about that, right? So my question would be, is it a loving thing to do to go in someone else's nation, bring your own gas, your own culture, push away is that a loving thing to do? Because it always comes down that we have to love everything, but is that a loving thing to do?
No, it's not at all. But they would turn it around on us and claim that, we went and did the same thing and we brought our God into these other nations, But the difference in argument would be that is God is on our side, and you can see that, the things that we built, and the good that came from these nations, and then when you look at these other nations, a lot of them, they didn't know how to do anything until we showed them how to do it. And so if we didn't bring them that technology, where would they be today?
Yeah, there must still be hunter-gatherers.
Yeah.
Because for thousands upon thousands of years, for example, in the African, there were not even nations, there were just people living there.
Mhm.
But they have been sitting on these resources for thousands of years. They didn't even know it was there.
Mhm.
But now they blame us for their poverty because we took their resources away. But we gave them also so much more back,
Yeah.
right? Financial help, technology, cultural things. And
Yeah.
that's always been swept under the rug. The reason that Africans are poor is because of us, because but they didn't even know it was there.
Yeah.
Because
They would still not know it was there, if it wasn't for
no,
us.
they still wouldn't know it.
Yeah. Well,
Because when they went to Africa in the 15th, 16th century, they were still hunter-gatherers, right?
mhm.
There were no pyramids in Nigeria, right? They didn't even have a written language. Now, a lot of people find it offensive, right? But yeah, how come that the European people came from a civilization and went back thousands of years? We had already huge cities, right?
Mhm.
Jerusalem, Babylon, Egypt, right? You had the Greeks taken over, you had the Romans taken over, all these huge cities, right? So how come that we have for thousands of years all this technology and big cities and these countries in the Far East and Africa and South America, they were still hunter-gatherers.
Well, knowing now what we know, it's I guess, when we've been fed this lie for so long that, we're all equal and stuff, and when you find out the truth that we are clearly not all equal, it's easier um to process the truth then, because then you understand why people act the way that they do, and their ways of life. You understand them a little bit more because you know that we are not all the same, and so it just makes more sense when you find out the truth, the reality that we are in, if that makes any sense.
Well, how can people deny the fact that if you go to India, that is like stepping into a complete different universe.
Yeah.
So how come if we're all the same, that all peoples develop differently and have totally different cultures? While when European people went to America or Australia or South Africa, all these cultures are almost identical,
Right.
right?
Well, the only ones that are being fed this lie that we're all the same are these, Western civilizations, and you won't go to India and they are not going to hear any of this propaganda that we're all the same because they'll laugh at you. They can clearly tell you that they're not the same as we are. It's only until they start coming into these white nations that they get fed this propaganda that we are all the same.
Yeah.
And anyone with eyes and nose and ears, you can see and smell these differences very easily, and the lie, though, I guess if you tell it long enough, it becomes truth to some people.
Yeah. Well, we're now at the point that I've been living now in Texas for a couple of years. but I don't have a Texan accent. I don't even have an American accent, right?
Mm.
I mean, I try, but yeah, my brain is just wired, and I have a Dutch accent, right? But based on the way I speak English, white people would not see me as one of them, but they would see someone from Nigeria as one of them because they are born here and therefore have an American accent. They would be accepted as an American before I am accepted as an American, right? How do you feel about that?
I think it's just crazy that people would do that for one, but it just goes on the fact that you can hear these differences, right? And then obviously you can see the similarities in who we are as people, but they still just the things that they hear is leading them to believe these uh false ideals, and so then they're led down this path where they treat their own kind unkindly, and then they start treating the unkind of them, right, the unsimilar people, like they are not only like them because they sound like them, but they are them, and in reality it's all been a huge deception.
Yeah,
But people that do that, it's I see it a lot in America, mostly, but honestly because that's all I've ever been, right? But it's crazy that these white people, how they will treat other white people, especially if they have like an accent, and I find myself, I'm more on the curious side of where are you from before I, start jumping down their throat on their accent, especially if we have the same, for the same people, regardless of what we sound like, you can see the similarities first.
yeah, yeah. So, what, don't you think it would be logical for Christians to desire a Christian government? Don't you think that should be logical for a Christian?
Yeah, you would think, but the way people's working these days, there's no logic behind anything. Nobody is stopping and thinking anymore. They're just doing what they're told and what they've been programmed to do. And it's not until the people stop and think for themselves where they will start to realize,
Yeah.
this path that we've been led down.
Yeah. Well, a lot of Christians think if you're a Christian, then automatically you're a Republican because Republican stands for Christianity. But we see this Marxist spirit also in Republicans,
Yeah.
right? And there is this new guy. He's running for president, 2024. His name is Vivek Ramaswamy. He is born in America, but his parents came straight from India, so he's brought up as an Indian. But according to the 1965 law, because his parents conceived his child on this soil, he's automatically an American, and therefore he can run for president. Right? How do you feel about that?
Well, I could see a guy like that probably winning, right? They might want a guy like that to win for one. And then you can you can lead the people to believe that, hey, this would be the first Indian president. Yay. Right. And where is that going to lead us? Well, it's going to lead us to the Indian lifestyle and their beliefs and their God and their way of lives. And it's going to completely get rid of the our God, right? And try to and destroy our people, right? And that's all that's going to come from that. And what a dumb law too. And it had to have been done on purpose, for this specific reason, so that someday they can just get this foreign leader, which we were definitely forbidden to do, right? In the first place, now to put these foreign leaders in front of us. But now here we are in a position where most of us will probably be asking for some of it, like, well, give us this foreign guy. He's probably better than Trump and better than Biden. And And all in the meanwhile, the truth is going under the rug, and they're still doing that whatever they want. They control the whole system.
Yeah.
It's not going to end well with a guy like that. I mean, he's got no Christian beliefs. He's not Christian, right? Regardless of what he claims, I cannot claim to be someone else's son, right? You just can't do it. And that's what these people are trying to do. But even if they try to do that, they're going to lead us down the wrong path,
Yeah. Well, wouldn't it be logical if strangers come into the land that we treat them well, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a Christian culture. So
Yeah.
if they come, we're going to treat them well. But it's still going to be a Christian culture, whether they like it or not, right?
Right.
And that has been taken away completely, right? And
Right.
we see in Europe now, we see Muslims in government, in parliament, being ministers, even prime ministers and mayors, right? But how come that these Christians actually believe that these Muslims can have the best interest for European people? How can they believe that is the case? Because how can a Muslim have the best interest for Christians? This is
Right.
not possible. But still, they put him in place because he sounds liberal or he sounds conservative, right? But this whole God thing, the whole Spirit of Christ is being totally taken away, even by Christians, right?
Yeah.
The mayor of London took away an advertisement. I think it was a traveling advertisement. Come to London, and they had a picture of an English family happy walking down the streets of London, right? He took the picture down because he said white people don't represent London, right? That's where we are now.
Yeah. They're putting up like anywhere you even go shopping, the advertisements, you notice this multi-culti agenda, and I see very few white people anymore. They're just kind of getting rid of us and replacing us with whatever else they want to. It's an absolute disgrace, really. It's a slap in our face and our ancestors' face. And us standing by and allowing it to happen is, we deserve everything we're going to get, if we're just going to stand and allow these people to rule over us, right? But I, for one, I'm not going to bow down and worship their gods, and I will keep trying to raise awareness to my fellow brothers that what kind of road where that will lead them if they do that, because that is where it's ultimately headed, right? They want to come in and control and take over, and then us to rule their gods. And then if we don't, what do you think's going to happen to us when we don't want to follow their gods? They're going to probably, behead us is what their goal will be, right? That's what we read in Revelation too. There's going to be a lot of beheadings. Who else do we know does a lot of beheadings these days?
Yeah.
Right.
Christians don't understand that you don't have to bow down and pray to Allah or to the Jewish God or to the Christian God. You don't have to do that to worship their gods. Because when people of other gods come in with their ideology and you accept that ideology, like humanism and all these things, what you're doing is worshiping their gods, right?
Yeah.
You don't even have to pray to Allah to worship their God, because that's already what you're doing, right? So Haiti was a French colony, and after France gave them their independence, these Haitians, they killed all the whiteys, right? We still have some there, from the consulate and stuff. But now the president of Haiti has told them to move and leave the country, right? So they're kicking out all remaining whites now. And but there is no news who covers the fact that it is racist or they can't do that. They're not comparing him to Hitler, right? So it's a bit of a double standard, because if we would say, we have enough, we would do the same, then all the name calling would come up, and It's a bit of a double standard, do you think?
Yeah, oh, absolutely a double standard. And for one, they're even changing the definition of racism and making it so basically only white people can be racist, right? And so if we speak out on that, if we were the ones that say, hey, we want all these people out of here, we've had enough of the way they act, the way they treat others, the way they treat their own people, right? The way they destroy and steal everything, we've had enough. What do you think they would do at that point? They probably destroy and loot and steal more, right? It would just be utter chaos because they, for one, don't know how to understand or even have a civilized conversation or even deal with any kind of conflict without it turning violent. You know, it's just utter madness, and we're not even allowed to have these conversations with them. You know, I love that video you shared the other day with the debate that was supposed to happen between the gay black man that kept foo-fooing his hair around. He couldn't even sit there and have a conversation with this man. He just completely blew him off. And it just shows that that's their level of intelligence, right? That's the way that they act. They can't have a civilized conversation in that. And if they do, it's probably because they've mixed with the European blood too. You know, that's why most of my friends, if they're mixed, right, they've got this European descent and they can kind of put things together, right? They have that intelligence, but the ones that don't, they just don't seem to get it half the time, you know, and they act absolutely foolish.
Yeah, they often don't have any impulse control.
Right.
That was a good example of it, right? So, but again, if there are strangers, I think we have to treat them well, right?
Mm-hmm.
But God gave us these nations, and we should be ruled through the Spirit of Christ, right? And then I would suggest for anyone who doesn't believe in God, you still have to recognize that even if God was not real, the people who built these nations, they did have faith in that Spirit. And
Yeah.
that's why these nations became the way they were, right? So, obviously, I do believe God is real and that Christ died to reconcile us back to God, right? Then no one can come to the Father except by me. By believing in Christ, we are reconciled. But when Christians go to these verses about, yeah, but Jesus said we have to love a neighbor. But did Jesus really mean that means you have to love Muslims and bring them in your home? Is that what Jesus really meant? Or was the message to Israel? Love each other, love your
Right.
brother, love your neighbor. Right? But that's why I don't want to go to church, because the last few times I wanted that I had to bite my lip, right?
Yeah.
When a pastor said, we have to love our neighbor in the context of it doesn't matter, bring the whole first world countries in. You know, I don't know if I can restrain myself one day. You know,
Yeah.
pull them out those wolves in sheep clothings.
No, exactly. Yeah. I can't even attend anymore because I'm getting to a point where I don't want to bite my tongue, right? And so why should I sit there and listen to their lies and then allow the possibility of the people that I'm with, you know, fall into that bull crap, you know? And it's the same madness, you know, why keep involving myself into that circle, you know, if they're going to keep preaching these lies. I want to give someone that's going to give me the truth, you know. And when I first started doing my podcast, and before I feel like God has been telling me to come and preach, right? I didn't want to preach from the King James, but I kept telling myself, God, where is this preacher? Who's going to preach the truth? And I kept looking around, and I couldn't find him, right? I can't find him anywhere. And God finally revealed to me, it's got to be you, you know? And then I think it's a verse in David where he's like, you know, it's his own arm that brings his you know, to his victory, right? You got to stand up and do it yourself. It's got to be me, you know. And so we all, as people, we have our roles to play, you know, us Christian brothers, and we all each individually need to stand up and play those roles, you know, and understand that we have a role to play, right? And then that's why we are here in speaking and trying to and bring some enlightenment to our brothers and sisters in Christ so that, you know, they will understand who they come from and understand that it's our birthright, right? and it is not something that you should just give away freely to everybody. You know.
And then a lot of people are just waiting, sitting around, right? But isn't Christ supposed to be already in us? Shouldn't we already eat that bread, those words, absorb those words, and live those words out already, right? And these words are not just about a personal relationship with God, because for Christians, it's only about a personal relationship with God. I accepted Jesus in my heart, and now they kind of deal with the life, clean up the lives a little bit, but there is no zeal for the body, for the nation.
Right.
The Bible constantly speaks about us as a nation, right? But Christianity has all become about me, myself, and I, and not about us as a body, as a nation, not at all, right?
Yeah.
They think about the body from, well, I'm a preacher, so I'm an arm, and the other one is an evangelist, so is your hand. And no, it's much more than that, right? Yeah. They have a form of godliness, but deny the power thereof. That's exactly what's happening, right? And the whole line of the Bible from Adam on is about one lineage. And along the way, certain offspring was rejected to work through. Right? We see Cain and Abel. We see it Esau and Jacob. Right? God said, no, you're disqualified. I'm going to work through Jacob. Right?
Right.
But then Christians, these false teachers preaching in the pulpit, that the whole story was only until Christ, right? After Christ, everything changed. It was God's people were suddenly not God's people anymore, right?
Yeah.
Jesus couldn't find the lost sheep, so now they had no choice but to bring the gospel to non-Israelite Gentiles, and all these things are just false translations, right?
Yeah.
Both the Old and the New Testament says that the new covenant will be with the house of Israel and the house of Judah. Right?
Yeah.
But these pastors don't teach that, right? And again, if someone from South America or wherever they want to believe in God, right? I won't stop them. I don't want to discourage them. But the fact remains that God only chose one people to build his kingdom, right?
Yeah.
People think the kingdom is only here somewhere in outer space, but Jesus had to pray that his will be done on earth as it is in heaven, right? So what is heaven? Is heaven a melting pot of different culture and gods and peoples, right? No, it's not. Heaven is not Allah sitting there and Muhammad and Jesus and Krishna, and they're all playing cards, singing Kumbaya. That's not what heaven is. There's only one God, right? So if we have to pray for his will be done on earth as it is in heaven, it has to be like heaven, right? For up to us, there's only one God, right? Now we have a society with all these different gods and philosophies, ideas. Right?
Yeah.
And Christians love it. And do you also notice that Christians pat themselves on the back for being so tolerant? Right? Have you noticed
Yeah, I
that?
know. It's just utter nonsense, is what it is. And it's like, oh, we just love everybody, and they're foolish, is what it is. And what it is too is it's a fake love. It's not even an authentic, real love. It's this fake K love kind of love. Like, hey, my friend is gay and he openly lives in sin every single day, but I just love him anyway. It's like, yeah, well, you really love your friend, you would be honest with him.
Yeah.
And tell him the way that he's living is only going to end up in one place. And
I saw a video in Germany where buses full of migrants from Syria and came in, and then these Germans who have been totally Marxist brainwashed ever since the war. He's standing there. Oh, you welcome in my country. Oh, my country is yours. But they're even worse than us because it's a false humility. What you want to show, it's just like you have a millionaire with a huge house, and they bring you in their house just to show you, look how beautiful, and bring you in my house. But all of this is showing off. Look what we did, and we make you part of it. That gives them an ooey gooey feeling inside. No, but it's still a form of supremacy, right?
Yeah.
Look how kind I am to you, right?
Yeah.
There were some videos people asking, okay, if you want all these migrants in, was in England. I got the 10 refugees. They have no place to stay. So where can they stay? What are the bedrooms? The guy said, no, I don't want to. What do you mean? Don't you want migrants in this country?
Yeah.
Oh, you just don't want them in your house.
Yeah, exactly. They want them in, just not in their house. Well, where do you think they're going to go? Eventually, they're going to overpopulate and they're going to take over your house.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, England is just a relatively small small island, and it has more than double the inhabitants of entire Texas.
Yeah.
More than double. Texas have what, 30, 33 million people? England has got 65 million people living there and counting. What about the resources? They already have problems with the sewer systems, with the water provision, food, housing, infrastructure, right? Only that is a problem. Just those things are already problem enough. So what is it in these people that but we have to help them. You don't have to help nobody. You're not helping them. And if you really care about Syria, how do you help Syria if we get young, able, strong men away from those countries, leaving them with just old people? How are you going to help them? How are you going to help them? Right?
Yeah. It's all lies, is what it is.
Yeah.
Help isn't real help. It's enabling these people and meanwhile destroying what they left behind, and then they come over here and destroy what we have. And because they don't like what, our ways of life, it's the circle that just keeps on spinning, and it's a never ending cycle. And it's never going to end until, enough people stand up and get into the right places in power. And I don't even know if that's possible anymore at this point, with the way that they control everything. And if anyone is in power and fights against the system, they're going to be, let off into some island somewhere or disappear and never to be heard of again.
Yeah. And I see all those interviews, and there are a lot of people who are against mass immigration and illegals, but then they always have to say, but if they are really from a war area, then they are welcome.
Yeah.
But they have no really clear line. That is, well, I'm against mass immigration, but we have to help those who come from war zones. But they don't realize that they're using that emotion against them because there will always be war somewhere, right?
Yeah.
They will keep on creating war. So, but you have to draw a line somewhere because, everything is being destroyed in the name of love and equality.
Yeah.
And I'm all for making our economy strong, our nations repenting, returning to God, so that we will be blessed and prosper, and then we can even be a blessing to other nations. Right? Doesn't that sound much better?
Right.
Now everything is destroyed.
Yeah. Who can we help? We won't even be able to help ourselves once, they get done destroying America.
Yeah. And that's another thing, right? The lockdowns are coming again, and all these videos about the fires in Hawaii and the food poisoning and the water, all the chemicals and all and then the high gas prices, the bad economy. So you have all these people, for example, with the lockdowns, all they do is watch hours and hours of videos about the vaccine, the lockdowns, and it is all a distraction, right? yes, these things are real, and you can discuss these things and warn people about those things. But in the end, they are distractions, because the biggest threat is that we are losing the land we have. We're losing everything,
Yeah.
right? So the other things are just side effects of our disobedience to be a set-apart people, right? But you can put videos out about the lockdowns, right? Because they're exposing, but you're not exposing anything if YouTube allows you to have thousands of views, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? The one thing that you cannot discuss, and we're discussing it, but it won't go viral, right? Because
Right.
this is the one thing that they don't want you to know. I have a video channel, and it is blocked in the entire world except in America. They showed me a chart world map where you can see my videos on video. It's only in America, so
Yeah.
it's considered hate speech. But all I'm doing is history, current affairs, everything in biblical and historical context.
Right.
Yeah. Or another thing, both Democrats and Republicans, they see this democracy as a holy thing that needs to be protected, cost what cost. But it's only logical that if you bring enough people of different cultures
Mhm.
and you give them the right to vote, that everything will change. It's only pure logic. So in
Right.
that sense, democracy, how can you um, maintain and protect a nation if you let people from other nations in and make decisions about what's going to happen in the future, right? It's just crazy, right?
Yeah, it's not even, they're not even trying to hide it anymore. They're openly just trying to destroy these white nations, and it's in like full force too, like hyper speed mode.
Yeah,
And it's, and then with the distractions of COVID coming back and all of that, I guarantee you they won't be locking down any borders. They'll be wide open. So while we'll be locked down, they'll be still coming in through each and all the borders, So
yeah,
it's still going to get even more and more chaotic. It'll probably reach a point where it'll be completely civilly unrest around the entire world, and
yeah,
if that's the way it gets at my timeline, I'm kind of hopeful for it, honestly, because um, then I'll get to see who's who at that point, and find out who the real people are. Um,
yeah,
lines will be definitely drawn that day.
yeah. Well, it's only logical if you have enough Muslims in England that by law they can vote to make England into an official Muslim state. That's only logical.
Yeah,
So I think it's very important what we're doing, waking up our brothers and sisters, right?
yeah,
That we don't have to be ashamed to be sons of God and to be part of the inheritance, right? God is working
right,
through us, right? We can be a blessing to the world, right? But we
right.
have to obey God's commandments, right?
Amen. Yes, sir.
So, all right, we'll leave it at this for today.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, awesome
Appreciate your
talk.
time, Benny. Yeah, you too, brother.
And well, we speak soon together.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Enjoy the rest of your day, brother. All
All
right.
right. God bless.
Bye.